Greetings. I am Miss Nedladla Kumbisa, and I would like to share a reflection of a lesson I taught to grade 11 learners at Kamalaki Commercial High School. So the lesson was based on literature, which is poetry, and the title of this poem was on memory. The aim for this lesson was to help the learners understand deeper meaning of the poem by exploring its structure, language, and emotional themes it conveys. So this was done through focusing. This was done by focusing more on poetic device like the use of imagery, symbols, and literature devices, while also encouraging the learners to connect with the poem on their own experience. So I began the lesson by writing the word memory on the board and then returned to the students asking them what it means. The learners gave their thoughtfully and meaningful answers, opening a great opportunity for them to engage easily to this lesson, and they began to think more critically, engaging emotionally to the poem. Then I shared the little background about the poet. Also shared emotionally and historically context of the poem as it was written in that way. And then after that, I asked the learners to reflect on their own vivid memory of their childhood. This was to connect them more to the text we were about to delve deeply in. Then before reading, we started by annotating the poem, looking at its structure, looking at the line it was built in, looking at the poems and the line. I was looking at the line and this poem, the rhyming, whether it's contained rhyming scheme or it was on a free verse, looking at the stanzas that was built up from these lines. And then we looked at the new vocabulary found in this poem while skimming it. And then during the reading phase, I selected one learner to read out the poem while the rest of the class followed around. And then we paused at some key lines and key moments to emphasize more the message that the poet is trying to convey, and to also explain deeply of the vocabulary they did not understand. In these lines, I also posed to ask questions to see if the learners were still following around with this poem. Okay. After reading this poem, I then constructed a class discussion asking learners if they did understand the poem, asking them the main theme of this poem, and then I grouped them into smaller group where they would share some answers after answering these questions. Challenges faced during this lesson was encouraging the shy learners to participate or speak in this lesson. And then I used the think per share strategy to overcome this problem so that these learners would speak up to their peers, at least to get them involved in our lesson for the day. Another challenge was the vocabulary. The poetic language used in this poem was a bit hard for the learners to understand, and then it took much longer time trying to explain the message that the poet is trying to convey to this poem and making the learners understand it out thoroughly. In terms of resources used in this lesson, I used copies of the poem, which was very helpful to the learners, as each learner got her or his copy to point out anything that she or he did not understand by themselves. And then the use of dictionaries was very helpful, as the They will search for the words that they did not understand for our written activity. Overall, the participation of the learners was very good and the lesson went very well. At the end of the day, the learners were understanding what the poem was about, and the aims and goals of this lesson were fulfilled.